So for a while, I have been eyeballing this Flame Toys Drift figure. For those of you that don't know, it is a high-end transformer that it doesn't actually transform, it stays in robot mode. It has significant articulation, details, die-cast, light-up features. It's going to be very similar to this Soul of Jigoken Gypsy Danger that I reviewed. I've been eyeballing this for a while. I wasn't sure if I wanted it or not. I loved the reviews of it. I loved playing with it, but I just didn't know if I had to have it in my collection. I don't do a lot of Transformers. However, when I saw the upcoming releases that Tarn is the next one and then an Optimus Prime, I made the decision that I wanted to go all in and start collecting this set. This is the first one. This is 01 Flame Toys Drift. And I know this is a figure that a lot of people don't have access to, and there's not a ton of reviews online for it, so I thought I'd make a review, see if you enjoy it, see if it's something you want to add to your collection. So on the turntable, you see the Flame Toys Autobot Transformer Drift turning. And from the outset, you can just see that this is not a toy in the traditional sense. It's certainly a collector's grade piece. I think it retails at $300 US, so it's certainly an expensive piece. This is the Flame Toys Kuro Kuri Drift. As I understand it, I am not deeply familiar with the IDW Transformers universe, comics universe. But Drift was previously a Decepticon named Dreadlock, and quote unquote became a good guy, became an Autobot, and changed the name to Drift. I don't know a whole lot of the backstory, but I've heard it's a pretty interesting comic, so I may have to check into that some more. But let's talk about the figure itself. This is just as it comes out of the package. I just took the kind of the plastic off of it, the protective mechanisms, and put it up on the turntable. We're going to look at a lot of extensive accessories, multiple swords, cape, hands, light up features, a stand. There's quite a bit involved with this figure, as you would expect at the $300 price point. But just, I wanted to get, for the base figure itself, an opportunity for you to look at it, see just the excellent craftsmanship. This is going to be a similar level of craftsmanship to the Soul of Jigoken Gypsy Danger that I reviewed recently. Lots of die cast in this. Lots of movable parts and pieces and articulation. Incredible machining. I think you're going to find the light up features to be pretty remarkable. Just all around, this is a really solid piece, as it should be at the price point. This is the first in this Flame Toys line of Transformers. These are not transformable. They stay in robot mode. So if you are an absolute Transformer diehard who has to transform their Transformers, this may not be the line for you. After reviewing and picking up some of the very low-end Hasbro Transformers, I got the Power of the Primes Dinobots. I got the Optimus Prime Power of the Primes. They just look really bad with the pieces that they can't find a way to hide to make them transformable. So I'm actually quite okay with this being not transformable, because it makes all of the features look really good. So just as an overview, I wanted you to see the base figure. Let's start to put some accessories on Drift so you can see some more of the items that he comes with. So I've put on all three of Drift's swords, as you can see there. One goes on each hip, and then one can go on his back, and that, I believe, is called the Great Sword. We'll look more at those in details later. I also put on the rest of his mask. You can see kind of the horns or crown type part of his mask. I put in the batteries as well. I'll show you the light up features here in just a moment. But What's really neat about this is all these things have places where they can live on him. They all are intricately detailed. As I started moving around the articulation to put these swords in place, I was incredibly impressed with the level of detail and the engineering of the articulation. We'll look more at that later as well. Of note, when I was putting the batteries in, again, this is a better thing than the way Hot Toys does their Iron Man armors. Most of these switches you can get to without having to unscrew or take anything apart, and the things you do have to take apart you can pop off and pop right back on. For some reason, a lot of times the Hot Toys Iron Man armor, you have to unscrew where the batteries are, and that's where the on-off switch is, and that's pretty frustrating. So I was pleased with that. I'll show you the light up gimmicks here in just a minute, but I wanted you to get a better look as he turns around of all those different swords and the way it makes him look. There are alternate faces for Drift and a number of alternate hands as well. Those are the other accessories that we'll look at. We'll also do some posing articulation so you can see some of that. So one final turn there, you can see looks pretty good with all those swords on him. So let's check out the light up features. So there we have Drift with all of his light up features turned on. And I tried to have the lighting here where you can see them but still see the figure without making it too dark. And I just think those look fantastic. So we can talk about how you turn them on. So in these leg joints there and there, those compartments just pop right off. Simple 2-peg system. The battery is within there, and then the on-off switch is outside of the battery case. So you put the batteries in, there's an on-off switch right there. It's easy. So I just popped those off, turned the switches on, popped them back in. For the head and chest, there is a switch that's kind of hidden away behind a small compartment behind his head, kind of the base of that sword back there. And it is a really tiny switch, hard to get to. I have to use a little bitty screwdriver to get to it, but it is something you can just flip the compartment over, open, and flip the switch. So no need to unscrew anything. Everything about this toy is not necessarily made for big dub. It's more made for mini dub or micro dub. Lots of the screws are little. Lots of the places you're trying to get to are little. So big dubs, big hands tend to have some trouble with some of these things. The coolest lighting mechanism is on the shoulders. And as you can see this right here, all you have to do is lift that up and it turns on the lighting mechanism. And you close it, it turns it back off. Now I really like those shoulders mechanism. They're almost like rocket launchers. They have the Autobot symbol. I think that this lighting looks really good and works well. I can imagine that you can take some pretty phenomenal pictures with all of this lit up. So really solid high marks on the lighting mechanism, especially the ease of getting to it and turning it on, which is a key component of lighting mechanisms because otherwise you'll never use them. So let's give you one more turn so you can see these lights, and then we'll start to look at some of the other accessories and change the poses up. And there you see the final look at his light ups. I'll put some pictures at the end of this so you can see some other illustrations of this as well. So I have both of Drift's side swords out in his sword holding hands. Put a little dynamic pose there just slightly. I did mess with him and take some pictures, do some different poses with these two swords out. And again, incredible articulation. I think those swords look really good. He can do some cool stuff having them both in his hands. I will say that as opposed to the Gypsy Danger, the Soul of Jigoken, I can't get this Drift to even come close to standing on one foot with, you know, like a Matrix pose or a high kick pose or something like that. I'm sure he can with the stand, but on his own, he really can't do that. And I think it's just the level of die cast in the legs and feet are not as much as in that Gypsy Danger figure. So, you know, that's a little disappointing, but not hugely, because I couldn't ever get that figure to hold that pose for longer than 5 or 10 seconds. So the two swords look really good. You can do any number of poses as you can imagine with those. I also changed out his face to one where he's gritting his teeth. When it turns around there, we'll see if you can see that a little better. He also has like a yelling face that I'll put on next when I start to use the bigger sword. So you can see, look right here and you can see the teeth gritting as opposed to the kind of stoic face that was on him before. Overall, I really like this. I like the way those swords look, come out of their sheaths. They're detailed. They fit in there firmly, but they come out as you would expect, and the hands hold them really well. So it looks great there with the two swords. Let's take a look at another way you could pose this figure. So Drift is turning. I have his great sword now in his hand, as you can see. And then kind of a different hand effect there. And I changed his face out to the screaming face. As he's turning, I wanted to show you some of the different hands, including the fists that come with him initially, which are these. Let's see if you can see them there. Put it on this. That's the fisted hand. There are 8 total. There are what I currently have on his right hand, which is a kind of open palm hand. There is a slightly different open palm hand with the index fingers a little pointed out more. There is a thumbs up hand. I'll show you more of that later. There is a completely flat open hand. Again, I'm not going to use most of these, so I didn't really have a way to pose them with these for the sake of this review. And then there's another completely flat open hand with just barely the top 2 fingers are moved a little bit. I mean, just very minor changes to the hands. There's this hand, which I think is like a blaster holding hand. The swords don't fit into it, but it's open. And he doesn't have an accessory that can use that. So I'm guessing that's for a blaster. And then this is the hands that I have holding the sword with the thumb a little separated. Those are what holds the swords. So 8 total sets of hands, as well as the 3 face sculpts, the stoic face, the baring the teeth, and then the open mouth. So let's talk more about the actual sword itself. I think this great sword is really, really, really nice. It closes at the hilt, the kind of circular area you're going to see open up as it turns. That closes when you put it away, so that's kind of an interesting effect. It's called the Great Sword. I think it uses like the All-Spark energy or something like that from Transformers lore. You can see the detail on it. Let me take it out here while he's turning. See if you can get a look at the detail on it. Really solid detail. And this mechanism, so what I'm telling you, it closes up when you pull the blade out, and then if you push it open, it opens up. So that's really cool. Kind of similar to the Sword of Omens for Voltron. So that's a really nice effect. I am positive I will display him with that great sword in his hand in some way. But let's take a look at one more accessory and then we will wrap up this review. Alright, so here's Drift with the final accessories we'll look at before we put him on the stand. It is a big cloak, then a separate piece. This piece here is like a scarf. The pictures I've seen of people using it are really good. I, however, am not sure that I know the proper way to set it up. It's not really bendy wire. It does have a wire in it. But it's a cloak that goes over his head and then just like a thin scarf piece. I do like, it looks good. It's tattered and ripped and you can make it look like it's swaying in the wind. I'm just going to have to fiddle with it to see if that's how I want to do it. Nice detail here on the underside where you see it's dusty and dirty. So I don't think this is how I will pose him, at least to begin with the cloak on, but I will take some pictures with him this way and see if I can learn more about the cloak and how to use it better. You may have to take all the swords off or something like that to make it easier. But it is nice that they have it. So I'm going to get him up on his stand so you can see what that looks like. Take him off the turntable for good. And we'll do our closing thoughts on this Flame Toys Drift. So there is Drift on his stand. His stand takes up a lot of area, which I don't like, but it is a fairly unique stand. I'll show you the mechanism to the side there. So this can move around and hold him in place if you want to rock him back. It has a kind of pretty thick peg that goes right into the butt. And so I think you can do flight stands, you can do dynamic different things. There's lots of hinges and multiple joints on this, so I do think that this is a pretty good stand. It's just big, and it's fairly plain black. I mean, even though there is some sculpting, there's no color to it, so that's a little disappointment at the price point, but that's nitpicking at this point. So to wrap up my review of this Flame Toys Drift, I give it 2 thumbs up, just as he is giving himself 2 thumbs up right there. The details are amazing. The way that the different pieces move and the articulation is great. If you'll see some of the pictures I put at the end of this, you'll see some different dynamic poses. You can do quite a bit with his arms and legs. His light up features are really good. Plenty of hands, several face sculpts. I love the swords. I'm a fan of sword weapons more than gun weapons anyway, so that's good. And I think that this is a must-have piece for serious Transformers collectors or just serious collectors. I don't actually collect a ton of Transformers. I have a lot of nostalgia for Transformers in that they were something I really wanted as a child, but were difficult for us to afford, so I did not have very many. So to wrap up, that's it. Please let me know if you like this review. Give it a like, subscribe to my channel, give me a comment, tell me what else you'd like to see me do, and share this video with your friends. So I appreciate you watching. Let's check out some pictures here so you can see a little more detail of this Flame Toys Drift.